In this video, we're going to look at chords and triads, and we're going to look at inversions, and we're going to look at how we can make major chords and minor chords very easily. So the first thing we need to know when we're trying to construct a major chord, there's two good ways to form a major chord. The first one is that a major chord is notes 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. So if we know that, we can always find any major triad or chord. Triad is just another word for a chord. Tri obviously means 3. So triad means 3 notes. Chords can have more than 3 notes. But anyway, let's have a little look at how we would make a major chord. So if we know that a major chord is notes 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. Let's say we want to write the chord of C major. So we're now going to write the chord of C major. Let's just say. So we're going to write the chord of C major. So an easy way to do it is to write out the notes of C major. So it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And it'll be notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we now know that to make a major chord, it will be notes 1, which is the C, note 3, which will be the E, and note G, which will be note number 5. So it will be C, E, G. So we can put that in. So it's C, E, and G. And there we've constructed the major chord of C major, which is note 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. Another way of working out a major chord is this way here, where we have the numbers 1, 4, 3. Now, what on earth does that mean? Well, that just means from the starting note, so let's start at C. From the starting note, we're going to move up 4 semitones. So the first semitone would take us to C sharp. The second semitone would take us to D. The third semitone would take us to D sharp or E flat. And the fourth semitone, which is the one we want, would take us to E. Then it says we move up 3 semitones. So from E, we would move up 1 semitone to F, 2 semitones to F sharp, and then 3 semitones would take us to G. So we move up 4 semitones from the first note, which would give us E, and then we move up 3 semitones to the next note, which would give us G. It would give us exactly the same chord, and we can do that with any note, any starting note. So let's start with the note G. So if I move up 4 semitones, the first semitone would be G sharp, the second semitone would be A, the third semitone would be B flat, and the fourth semitone, which is the one we want, would be B. And we're moving up 3 semitones. After B would be C, that's 1 semitone, then it would go to C sharp, and then it would go to D, which is the third. So the chord of G would give me a G, a B, and a D. That would give me the chord of G major. So there's 2 ways to work out major chords. We can either do 1, 3, 5 of the major scale, or we can do this other method where we count up 4 semitones from the starting note to get us the middle note of the triad, and then we count on another 3 semitones to give us the third note of the chord. So let's just get rid of some of that information there, and let's get rid of all this here. There we go. So what we want to talk about now, we want to have a little look at what we understand by the word inversion. What is an inversion and how does it work? Let's start off with a major chord of, we'll just work with C major because it's nice and straightforward. Let's do it down in the middle here. So we know that the C major chord is a C, an E, and a G. Now, when the name of the chord is the lowest note, we say that chord is in root position because the name of the chord is at the bottom. It's the lowest sounding note. But the three notes in this chord, I can have the same chord, but I can rearrange these three notes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to ask the bottom note, which is the C, I'm going to ask that note to go an octave higher, up here. So I've still got the same three notes, but they're now in a different order. Instead of having C, E, G, I've now got E, G, C. Same three notes, but in a different order. Now, when we do that, we call that the first inversion. That's the first inversion because we've inverted the chord the first time. So the root position is when the name of the chord is the lowest sounding note, it's at the bottom. The first inversion is when we send that bottom note, that C, right to the top of the chord, and we have the same three notes, but in a different order. Now I can do the same thing again. I can have the G as the lowest sounding note, and I can have the E there, sorry, the C there, and then the E on top. Same three notes. If we write the notes in, C, E, G. So we've got E. So we've got exactly the same three notes, but each time there's a slightly different order. So this one here, because I've now inverted it for the second time, we call that the second inversion. And I can do that with any chord at all. So those are the inversions and how we work out the inversions. So let's have a look. Let's maybe, we'll clear all that. So let's do one or two more. Let's do, we'll construct a chord of D major. So first of all, we'll construct a chord. Remember what we would do. To construct a major chord, it will be notes 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. So let's just, what we'll do first of all, we'll write the major scale of D major. So it's D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And notes 1, 3, and 5 will be 1, that will be 3, and that will be 5. So the notes of the D major scale will be D. Sorry, the notes of the D major chord will be D. But remember the middle note, the one in the middle there will be F sharp, and that will be A. So can you remember what we call the chord when its name, the name of the chord is the lowest sounding note, we call it the root. It's in root position. That's root position chord. Now, how do we get the first inversion of this chord? Well, we send the bottom note, that D, we send it to the top. So we'd get the F sharp in the middle, then we get the A, and then we get the D on top. Same three notes, but now this is the first inversion of that chord. And the second inversion, we would send the notes like this. And the F sharp now goes up to the top. We've still got the same three notes. We've still got, in the first one, we've got a D, we've got the F sharp, and we've got the A. And here we've got the F sharp, we've got the A, and we've got the D. And here we've got the A, we've got the D, and we've got the F sharp. So in each case, we've got the same three notes in a slightly different order. And that's how we label them: the first inversion, the second inversion, or the root chord. And the root chord is the one where the name of the chord is the low sounding note at the bottom. Then in the first inversion, that root note goes to the top. And in the second inversion, the root note is in the middle. So each note takes a turn at being at the bottom or in the middle or at the top. So that's the root position chord and the first and second inversions. And the next thing to remember about chords is that we label chords with Roman numerals. Now there's a strange thing. So when we're labeling chords, we've got to use Roman numerals. So a chord can be called chord 1, or it can be called chord 2, and we label that like that. It could be called chord 4, or it could be called chord 5. Now for grade 5, we really only need to worry about those chords. And let's think about, how does a chord get its number, its Roman numeral? Well, it gets its Roman numeral from its position in the scale or the key. So let's do a nice easy one. Let's say we're writing chords in the key of C major. So the first thing I'm going to do now in C major, I'm going to write the notes out. I'm going to write C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to give the numbers of these notes. I'm going to put the Roman numeral numbers underneath. So the C I'm going to call chord 1. The D I'm going to be calling chord 2. I'm not going to worry about E because I don't need it at this stage, but chord F, or the note F, I'm going to call chord 4. There's the Roman numeral for that. And then the G I'm going to call chord 5. G is 5 because it's the 5th note in that key, in that scale. F is number 4 because it's the 4th note. And now I'm going to build the chords, the triads on these notes. So for C, and an easy way to do this, if you've got the scale written out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, an easy way to do it is just go every alternate note. So the C chord, for example, I'm going to go every alternate note. So I'm going to go C, I'm going to miss out the D, and then I'm going to put E, and then I'm going to miss out the F, and I'm going to put G. So there we've got the triad of C, of chord 1. Then the D, I'm going to miss out the E and put the next one, which is F. Then I'm going to miss out the G, I'm going to put A. So there's the chord 2. For F, I'm going to miss out the G and put the A. And then I'm going to miss out the B and put the C. Now we've got to be careful with chord 5 because we're going to run out of notes, aren't we? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to think, well, what note will come after this C? Well, the note after C will be D. So I'm going to carry on as though I'm doing another octave. But I only need to do one extra note. So for the G, I'm going to miss out the A, I'm going to put B. Then I'm going to miss out the B, I'm going to put D. So now I've got 4 chords in the key of C major. I've got chord 1, I've got chord 2, I've got chord 4, and I've got chord 5. So if I want to write those out, this will be chord 1, C, E, G. That's going to be chord 1. Then chord 2 is going to be D, F, A. So that's chord 2. And we've got to use Roman numerals, don't forget. Then the chord 4 will be F, A, C. That's going to be chord 4. And then chord 5 will be G, B, D. So there's chord 5. So that's how we work out chords in a key. And that's how we work out what Roman numeral we're going to give to each different chord. So C major, for example, in this case, C major is chord number 1. But C major, when we're talking about the key of G major, wouldn't be chord 1. It would be a different number. And if it was in the key of F, it would be a different number to it. It just depends on its position in that scale. So let's just have a little go at that and see what we mean by that. So let's do some chords now just to show you We'll do some chords in the key of, let's do G major. So we're going to do G major this time. So the first thing we do, if you remember, we're going to write the scale out. So we're going to write G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. Don't forget there's an F sharp in G. Then I'm going to put chord 1 under the first note, under the second note, chord 2. Not going to bother with the third note, but the fourth note, I'm going to put chord 4, and the fifth note, I'm going to put chord 5. Then I'm going to build them up, miss every other note out. G, miss out the A, put the B. B, miss out the C, put the D. Then I'm going to go to chord 2, A, miss out the B, put the C. C, miss out the D, put the E. C, miss out the D, put the E. Now, E, miss out the F sharp, put the G. Now remember, for chord 5, we're going to need the next note on. So the next note in this scale would be A. And if you get stuck, just look at the beginning. It goes from G to A. So now I'm for the D, I'm going to miss out the E and put the F sharp. Miss out the G and put the A. So now I've got the 4 chords in the key of G major. And notice this time that chord 4 is the chord of C major. Now in our first example, that was chord 1, but now it's chord 4 because we're in a different key. We're using a different scale. So if I was going to write these out, I'm going to put chord 1. I'm going to put G, B, D. That's chord 1. Chord 2 would be A, C, E. Chord 4 would be, let's do it up here, shall we? C, E, G. Chord 4. And chord 5 would be D, F sharp, A. That's chord 5. So whatever key you're in, all you would do if you wanted to work out the chords of 1, 2, 4, and 5, write the scale out of that particular key and build the notes up like I've done over here. Just remembering any sharps or flats, make sure you get the right sharps or flats, and you'll be able to work out the chords of 1, 2, 4, and 5. So we'll just finish off, and I'm just going to do something. Let's clear all those, and let's have a look at the key. Let's do the key this time of F major. So same thing again. I'm going to write the notes out. I'm going to write F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And again, I'm going to put the next note in because I'm going to need that for chord 5. So chord 1, I'll miss one out, put the next note. Miss one out, put the next note. That's chord 1, chord 2. Miss one out, put the next one, which is B flat. I mustn't forget the flat. Miss one out, put the next one, D. Chord 4, I've got a B flat, miss the C out, put the D. Then the D, miss the E out, put the F. And chord 5, I'm going to put, miss the D out, I'm going to put the E. And I'm going to put the G. Now, so far in the first example, this chord here, which is a C major chord, was chord 1 in the first example. In the second example, when we're in the key of G major, it was chord 4. Now we're in the chord of F major, it's chord 5. So its Roman numeral is determined by the key that it's in and its position in that key. So this time I'm going to write some chords. I'm going to write these chords out. I'm going to do something different, see if you can spot what I'm going to do. So chord 1, I'm going to put F, A, C. That's chord 1. So for chord 2, I'm going to put B flat, and I'm going to put D, and I'm going to put G on there. So that's chord 2. Then for chord 4, I'm going to start down here. F, B flat, and D. That's chord 4. And chord 5, I'm going to play, maybe I'm going to put the G there, and I'm going to put the C and the E, so that's chord 5. Now, have you noticed something a little bit different this time? This time, we've got chords that are inversions that have been swapped around, where the root note moved either to the top or in the middle. So let's have a look to see if we've got any root chords. Remember, a root chord, the name of the chord is the low sounding chord or low sounding note. So here we've got a chord 1, and chord 1 is an F chord, and F is at the bottom. So that's root position, isn't it? So that's okay. Now chord 2, for it to be in root position, it would need G at the bottom, and it hasn't got G at the bottom, it's got G at the top. So let's have a think. Remember whether that's the first inversion or the second inversion. That's going to be the first inversion, isn't it? I'm just going to put first there. And this one, chord 4, it's got F at the bottom, its lower sounding note. So that's going to be second inversion. And what about chord 5? If it was going to be root position, it would need C at the bottom. But it hasn't got C at the bottom, it's got C in the middle. So what will that be? Will that be first inversion or second inversion? That's going to be second inversion, isn't it? Going to be second inversion. Now there's a much easier way of showing this in the exam. They're not going to ask you to put root first or second. If it's root, we put the letter A. If it's first inversion, we put the letter B. And if it's second inversion, we put the letter C. So this one here, because it's root position, we put A. But there's just to make life a little bit complicated for us, when it's an A chord, we don't usually put the A. It's a little bit like positive numbers in maths. When we write down positive numbers, we don't usually put the plus sign in front of the number. We only need to put the negative sign in front of the number when it's not positive. So it's a bit like this in music. We've got a root position chord, and because it's an A chord, we don't need to put the A. So when we come to chord 2, we notice that it's a first inversion. But this time we really do have to put B there because it's not root position. And when we come to a second inversion, on this one, chord 4, we've definitely got to put the C. And this is a second inversion, so we've got to put the C. Sounds complicated, but with some practice, you'll get the idea. So what we'll do, we'll just do a couple of those to see if you understand it a little bit. So let's choose a different key this time. Let's choose the key of what shall we say, A major. So we'll choose the key of A major. So again, I'm going to write the A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, and I'm going to put the next note in because I'm going to need it. Chord 1 will be C sharp, E. Chord 2 will be D, going to an F sharp. Then chord 4 will be D, F sharp, A. Then chord 5 will be E, G sharp. Oops, sorry, that should be a G sharp. G sharp, shouldn't it? Let's try and get rid of that because that doesn't look very neat, does it? I'll try and get rid of that without getting rid of many other things. Right, that's not too bad. So we'll get back to that. So E, G sharp, and then B. So now let's have a go at writing them down. I'm going to write them down and you've got to tell me whether they're going to be an A chord or a B chord or a C chord. For the first one, I'm going to put C sharp, E, and then A. Chord 2, I'm going to put B, D, F sharp. Chord 4, I'm going to put A. Chord 4, I'm going to put A, D, F sharp. And chord 5, I'm going to put E, G sharp, and B. So let's have a look. So in an exam, they might ask you to identify the chords. So this could be a typical exam question. So you may be given some chords like this, some triads, and you've got to identify them. So the first thing you've got to remember, there's got to be a Roman numeral and a letter. And the only time we can leave the letter out will be if it's an A chord. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to this scale that I've written out, the chords. And then next to the bottom line here, I'm going to put A. And then next to the middle line, I'm going to put B. And next to the top line, I'm going to put C. So I'll put A next to the bottom line, then B for the middle, and then C for the top. So all I need to do now is come along to this chord here. And what I'm going to do, first of all, I've got to work out what Roman numeral it's going to have. So I'm going to write the notes out underneath. It's got a C sharp, it's got an E, and it's got an A. So I come along to my chart and say, which one of those is it? Well, it's got a C sharp here, it's got an E, it's got an A. So it's chord number 1. So it's chord number 1. Now, to find out what letter goes with it, I say, what's the lowest note in that chord? What's the lowest sounding note? It's going to be C sharp. So I come along to my chart and C sharp here, I go along and it's a B. I've got to write a B with that one. So for this one here, I'm going to write the notes out. I've got a B, and then I've got a D in the middle, and then an F sharp. So I go along to my chart and say, which one of these has the same 3 notes? Well, it's going to be chord 2, isn't it? So it's going to be chord 2. And again, I've got to work out what's the lowest note in that chord. It's a B. And when I look at B here, it's an A. And because it's an A, I don't need to put A. I can leave it just as 2. This one here, I've got I'll do it on top so we can see. I've got the A at the bottom, got the D in the middle, and I've got the F sharp at the top. So which chord is it going to be? It's going to be this one, D, F sharp, A. So it's going to be chord 4. And to find its letter, I say, what is the lowest note? It's the A. And where is the A? Oh, it's right up there. Come along. So it should be a C chord, that one. And then this one here, got the E. I've got the G sharp, and I've got the B. So which chord is it going to be? It's going to be chord 5, isn't it? E, G sharp, B. It's going to be chord 5. And what note is the lowest one? It's an E. So find the E, come along, it's an A. And remember, when we've got an A chord, we don't need to put the A. So that's a little video about triads and chords and how we construct them. Remember, the other way of constructing a major chord, if you forget, is start with the starting note, then move up 4 semitones, and then move from that middle note 3 semitones. That's another way of finding a major chord. And to find a minor chord, we just change those around. To find a minor chord, but we'll do that on another day. A minor chord, we could start with the starting note and only go up 3 this time, but then we would go 4. So here, if we started on C, to go up 3, we go to C sharp, then we go to D. So that's 1, 2, and after D, it would give us E flat, so we need that one. Then we've got to move up 4. From E flat, it would go to E. From E, it would go to F. From F, it would go to F sharp. So we've gone 1, 2, 3, and from F sharp it will go to G. So a chord of C minor would be C, E flat, G. That's another way of working out minor triads. But don't worry too much about that, because we can work on those another time. So that's it for today. Hope that made some sense. If it didn't make much sense, and it is complicated, just keep going over it, trying to understand it and working on examples. And if you've got the theory book, the grade 5 theory book, you'll find some information on page 55. So if you look on page 55 of the grade 5 theory book, you'll see some examples, and it will go through some of the information. And then if you go on to page 56, then you'll get some examples, and you can work through those, and that will give you a better idea of whether you understand it or not. So that's it for today. Go through the video as many times as you need to get the idea, and we'll see you next time with some more videos about music theory, grade 5. Bye for now.